As a comedian, that was the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I was in Africa for a couple of months, and I came back and I resigned my commission. And then the next gig I did in London, I just died in my arse. It was horrific. It was like the worst gig I've ever done. Like, oh my God, I just lost my pension. So I'd done all the army stuff and I loved it. I did really enjoy it, but it's nowhere near as exciting as going on stage. Or as dangerous, to be honest.
Gary Colman, comedian and doctor, he's a good mate of mine, and I do a charity, well, I help him with a charity, game therapy. We'll talk about that. Good mate of mine as well, and that's very rare. I haven't got many friends. I've got lots of friends. He's there. That's Gary. Gary Colman.
Hey, hello.
Not that Gary Colman, this Gary Colman.
Oh, what are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm just saying how nice you are.
Yeah. Lovely. Nice to see you.
That's it.
Go for the full best.
Gary Colman, welcome to my little studio. We know each other a little bit, don't we?
We know each other very well.
Yeah.
That's not lie.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Why did you, Gary Colman,
agree to this?
Agree to this, and also,
money.
Why did you start comedy?
Do you know what? You're not the first person. A lot of people ask, what on earth?
We'll get into it later on,
Okay.
but Gary is also a doctor.
Yes.
And you started a charity, and we do a show at the Comedy Store.
We do.
Just kind of go back to saying that he's a funny man. You compared, and you were fantastic. I had someone coming up to me.
That was helpful.
And we had people like Mark Thomas on, and some really good. They said, "Who's that guy who was comparing?" And he said, "You were their favourite."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was my favourite as well. To be honest.
Were you? No, you were good. But anyway, why did you start?
When I was a kid, I guess all my heroes were comedians.
Really?
I was really shy as a kid. There's no way I could ever see myself doing comedy or showing off or being on a stage. I grew up in the North East. I remember as a little kid sitting there with my dad and my granddad, and we're watching a Danny Kaye film.
Oh wow!
Yeah. The one where he was a minstrel or something. And I remember looking at my mum and my dad and my granddad, and they would just crying with laughter. And I thought, oh my God, that's an amazing thing to do comedy, to have that. And back then it was like the Goodies, and I suppose Morecambe and Wise. I just loved it all. So I didn't think I could be a comedian any more than I could have gone into space, but I just loved them. They were heroes. And I think I was always like a funny, odd kid rather than a funny. I was never sure, but I was quite, funny in an unintentionally kind of odd way. This Danny Kaye film, so I remember saying to my dad and my granddad, one day when I grew up, I'd like to do that. And just the look of horror on the faces. But it was there. I just always would have thought, if you wanted to do anything, in the same way as you could watch football and go, I can't play football, I'd love to be a footballer. I'd have just loved to be a comedian. It was just, as a kid, that's all I wanted to do. My heroes. All my heroes are comedians, and they still are. You must know some of them. You probably met loads of them. When did I actually first do a gig?
From the start, yeah.
You mentioned I was a doctor. I went to medical school.
Yeah.
And at medical school, there's a thing called a medics review. So again, in the first year of the medics review, I remember sitting in the audience watching it going, I could never dare go on stage. Right. And then in the second year, someone said, would you write for the medics review? And there's me and another friend of mine, he wasn't a medic, but we were both quite funny, odd funny. And so we thought we'd write for it. And then they said, can you just be in it? And so and it was horrific. It was awful. It was just like, you had like 2 weeks to prepare a show. Yeah. None of us were performers. It was awful. But that was the first time I was on stage, and I just came off going, oh my gosh, that was just the most exhilarating thing I've ever done in my life. Even
though it was hard, it was
Yeah. And unfunny. And it was just painfully unfunny. And then the first proper gig, and you'll know Logan Murray.
Yeah.
So Logan does a course on how to become a comedian. Yeah. And it's like a 6-week course. And at the time I was in the army. I was
an army medic.
I was an army doctor.
Like MASH.
Almost exactly like MASH. But without Colchester. Without the Viet Cong.
Did you go out to places?
Yeah. So I did 14 years in the army. In the last few years, I was a medic for UK Special Forces. Right. It's mental. So that's what I was a medic. I wasn't them, but I was the medic doing that. Right. And so, to answer your question, long story. I did this course with Logan Murray in London. And at the end of the course, you have to do a gig in Soho. So I was going to do my little gig in Soho, my first ever being on stage doing stand-up comedy. And at the end of that night, after the end of the 6-week course, all the other comedians were probably going to go off and have sex with each other or whatever, try and have sex, fail and have sex with each other. And I was deploying off. I had to get into a C-130 aircraft and fly off to Africa.
Seriously?
Yeah. So there was me sat in the back of this aircraft, the C-130, with the SAS, I guess, you know, flying over the jungle. And it should have been the most exciting thing in the world. And all I kept thinking was, this is crap. I was just on stage in Soho as a comedian. That was the most exciting thing I've ever done.
That's amazing.
And I was in Africa for a couple of months, and I came back and I resigned. I resigned my commission. I said to my boss, I didn't tell him why. I said, I'm leaving the army. I've had enough. I've loved it. I loved it. Loved the army. But I just changed tribes. I changed crowds, you know. And then the next gig I did in London, I just died in my arse. It was horrific. It was like the worst gig I've ever done. Like, oh my God, I just lost my pension. I just giving up all his money. But it just felt the right thing to do. You know, it was the right thing to do. It was brilliant. I loved it. So I'd done all the army stuff and I loved it. I did really enjoy it. But it's nowhere near as exciting as going on stage.
Can you imagine?
Or as dangerous, to be honest.
But you still keep your hand in as a doctor, as they say.
As a gynecologist.
Very good, see? So if you're enjoying this shoot, make sure you like, subscribe to my channel, and on my channel I'll link you to GaryColman.com.
Back to
the
show.
interview. I always knew you were doctoring.
Yes.
And then you work with the kind of homeless.
So yes, to pay the mortgage, I still work 1 day a week as a doctor.
Yeah.
And a doctor, and I do end of life care around here in the Camden area for people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't sound a bundle of laughs, but I love it. And the clients, the patients are brilliant. The project that we do, again, it's not funny, but it's true. We've extended the life of our patients by 10 years. It's just, I've never done anything as impactful as that.
By helping them?
By helping them, yeah. We go out on the street and on bicycles and things, and just basically these are people who are you know, often in their sort of 40s and 50s, men often who are essentially dying from child abuse, you know, from the effects of just a life of psychological trauma. And they're not engaging with anybody. They don't see doctors. They don't go to hospital. They don't do anything. They're really unwell. And so to help, I go out on my bike and engage with them and just go back week after week after week after week, year after year. And we've been doing the project now for 10 years, in our 10th year. And in that time, the average age of death, I mean, it's tragically young still, but it's gone from 47 years old, average age, up to 56.
But within that, then you started a charity, Game Therapy UK.
Yes, which again you're kind of involved in.
I'm kind of involved, but
I see you more than my wife.
So that is another tangent to your passion, which is Dungeons and Dragons. And
oh yeah, I do a lot of things.
You're all over the place, aren't you?
I am, but that's my brain is all over the place.
So the therapy, the game therapy is you bring people, homeless people or people with PTSD.
Yeah, so it's anybody. It started out as a project for people experiencing homelessness in Camden. We got people together and we played Dungeons and Dragons, which is like a lifelong passion of mine, the games, because there is some evidence that it might be therapeutic.
Right.
And out of that, a collaboration with loads of other people, like doctors and psychologists, we started a charity, a registered charity, and we now, right across the UK, play therapeutic games. We like complex games, and we like games that are cooperative rather than where you fight against each other.
Yeah, right.
And then we play these games, and people experiencing homelessness or survivors of modern day slavery, army guys, PTSD, that sort of thing. Yeah. There's a lot of things. I think one thing it definitely does is it's social. Right. So it gets people, so often people are isolated and it brings people together. You know, if you're homeless, you might be quite isolated. Yeah. Even in the military, I mean, the guys who I play with online with the charity with the military guys, they're not necessarily lonely or isolated, but they're isolated from other military people because they've left the army, the veterans. Yeah. They've gone back to wherever they're from in the UK, around the world, and they don't get a chance to talk to anybody from the military, and they've gone through certain experiences. Yeah. And we bring them together just to do this silly thing, which is play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a chance for them to get back together and cooperate. And the game itself is inherently therapeutic. Playing these games is very imaginative and creative and telling stories, but the effects are profound, and you see the changes in people who've got, you know, again, life of trauma or complex trauma, and the changes from just playing these games sort of thoughtfully, week after week, year after year. It's just incredible. Yeah.
So I took some pictures of you a few years ago, and I remember you doing the dice. So that's a die, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
no, one dice. 3 die.
That was a bad gig.
Is that a 20-sided die?
So you're mostly as geeky as this guy, aren't you?
You play Dungeons and Dragons. You look like a man.
I've never played it. No.
Okay, but yes,
Frankie gets involved in these. Let me take a picture of Frankie.
So that's one of my favourite photographs. It's one I use everywhere, and then I blink.
2, 3. So that is part of the game.
The other thing that I do is we've got a panel show, comedy panel show, which again we've talked to you a lot about. Yeah. And we do a comedy panel show. We've got amazing comedians on there. So we've had Jared Christmas, Philip Simon, and Kate McCabe. We get comics who don't play. So Philip Simon would definitely be,
Right. But don't you need people who have played, or it doesn't matter really?
Yeah, it's a panel show. So the idea is it looks like comedians mucking about playing Dungeons and Dragons. So it's just like, 8 out of 10 cats or Will I Lie to It. It's just a panel show, except it does look like we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. We've got this massive big dungeon behind us on a computer screen that we've made. The guys have got no idea what's going on. It's all improvised.
Have I caught you before the big jump to the fame?
Well, it depends when this goes out. Any second now. Yeah. I would imagine.
Maybe we should put this.
I imagine you probably have caught me before to become famous.
Best gig?
Oh, I don't know. I tell you what I do love. It's not a gig, but it's kind of Edinburgh. Before the kids got too big, I used to go to Edinburgh every year, and I used to love that.
Right.
I loved doing a show where I was just me on the poster, my ego, and people just came to see me. And I could do an hour, like a long set, like a long narrative thing. I loved that. Yeah. Like the best gigs, I think they're all generally quite good. If the room's set up well, hopefully the gig's fine and you have a good, lovely little gig. So my dad who went, don't be a comedian, he came to see us at a gig and I was on around the corner from here, the Bloomsbury.
Yeah, Bloomsbury Theatre.
Yeah. I was on there and all the comics were brilliant, and me. And Michael McIntyre was like the headline act. The gig was wonderful. And then I came off, I saw my dad and my mum, and just to see their faces and go, oh wow, he's not as bad.
They weren't as aghast when you were a kid.
Thought he was going to be. And the gig was lovely. It was nice to do a nice little gig, but to see my mum and dad go, oh wow, okay, that was nice.
What about worst gig
Adulation. Then? Oh God, there's thousands of them. There's thousands of them. But they're also kind of the best gigs as well, aren't they? The ones you talk about. And
have you got one that you can remember, their worst gig?
I tell you, I knew you were going to ask this, so I was thinking, what is the worst gig? It's the best worst gig. I did one at the Comedy Caf, a fundraiser, and I didn't know it was a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser for Tourette's. Everybody in the audience had Tourette's. But that was just a funny, bad gig.
I mean, even visualising
that was just, like. You just see it. But that was a funny, bad gig.
Yeah.
I did a gig where we got there, and it was basically a corporate gig, unbeknownst to us. And we got there, and the guy said, the young man whose gig it is died. He's committed suicide. But we're still going to put the gig on, but don't mention suicide. And I was like, well, of course we're not going to mention suicide. And then the first act came on, hadn't had this bit of brief, and his first bit, he's quite a famous comic, he's got a brilliant bit on suicide, and he started doing the preamble going into it. And of course, all the comics, we can't stop him, we just know where this bit's going, like, no! And that was quite a tricky gig for all of us after that. But that wasn't the worst gig. The worst gig was, I did a gig up north somewhere with John Gortillo, who's a brilliant comic. I love John a bit. And I was driving up there, and John was going to do some new stuff, and I was going to do a thing, and it was December. It's a time where you might worry about having a bit of a tricksy gig, because it's like people are drinking, it's Christmas time. And we got this little club, like a workman's club type thing, but it was we thought it was a monthly gig. And we got there, and everyone was in black tie, and it was a corporate. Right. And we were being paid like just gig money to do it. Yeah,
it's terrible.
It was awful. And the guy who got us there said, I was going to do 20, and John was going to do 40. And the guy said, it'd be brilliant. They don't know it's comedy, so it'll be a surprise for them. And John went, yeah, I'm not going on. I'm not going to go on. This is a corporate gig. I've been brought here under false pretenses. Best of luck, but I'm not going to go on. And the guy turned to me and says, what about you? And I went, yeah, I'll go on. And he said, if you do longer than your 20, if you do John's bit, I'll give you John's money.
That's an hour, though.
And I thought,
I could work that out. I was quite good at maths.
And I thought, well done. And I thought, it's a gig, he's a comic. You look at this gig, it's unplayable. It's an unplayable room. I've got nothing now to lose. So I thought, I'll just give it a go. We've come all this way. So I went on and I started doing it, and it was just horrendous. There was like there's no light, I wasn't lit, there was no real microphone. No one really knew I'd started. No. The only light was from like a flashing light from a DJ booth. It was like, I had nothing to lose. And I started doing my stuff. And the only laugh track I could hear was John at the back of the room, laughing because I'd been daft enough to try it. And I did sort of 5 minutes, and it was like, oh, okay. But I was getting little laughs from here and there, and then it got worse and worse. By about 8 minutes in, I dropped the C-bomb. This was their Christmas party. Oh. I called one of them.
Yeah.
And I don't usually swear on stage. No. And it was just...
What was the C-bomb being Christmas?
Christmas, the Christmas bomb. And it was just horrendous. And I kind of felt bruised by it. They were being really mean. It was a rugby club. These big blokes were just being horrible to us and things. And I came off, and we got in the car, this massive long drive back. And John's like, again, like a hero. Like, I'm sorry, my heroes just seen me just do this horrendous death. And I got in the car, and John says, do you want to talk about it? No. So we got in the car, and we drove back. After about an hour, he says, do you want to talk about it now? I'm like, yeah. So I started talking about it and explained what happened. And he said, and this is the best bit of advice.
Okay.
Best bit of advice I've ever had. And John said, do you know when it went wrong? For the first 5 minutes, it was an unplayable gig, but you thought it was funny. You're on stage failing, and you thought it was hilarious that you were failing.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
Yeah.
And it was always a potential of people laughing at it. About 5 or 6 minutes in, he said, it just changed, and you just went, this is not funny anymore. This is just vile.
Yeah.
And as soon as you stopped finding it funny, it was just, there was no comedy. It was just a man dying on stage.
Right.
And that was it. All you got to do is just find a way of finding it funny.
Yeah. What would you do? It's a bit hard, this one, because you're a doctor. I usually say, what would you do if you weren't a comedian? But
what will I do when I get struck off?
When you get struck off, let's not do the doctory thing, because you are a doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. What would you do?
If I wasn't a comic or a doctor or playing Dungeons and Dragons or being in the army or doing all those other things, there's nothing left. I've done everything.
Yeah. When you look in the mirror, Gary Colman,
yes.
What do you see?
It looks a bit like Steve Best, to be honest.
Yeah, cheeky.
Mm-hmm. I like the suit. I just look really old now, don't I? Very old.
Where'd you get the suit from?
The suit. I bought this suit in London. I won't tell you where, because don't buy one. I bought this suit in London. I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. Paid a fortune for it.
Really?
And then they sell them in the high street shops for like a fraction of the price. I got absolutely ripped off.
Oh, it's the same suit, not the design?
Literally the same suit.
Seriously?
Yeah. The guy said, it's a designer's suit. I had to one-off the only thing that he designed was the label. He just sold the label. You buy them in Westfield for literally like a third of what I paid for this one.
Oh, man.
Same suit.
Do you see anything else?
You're quite right, my eyes are gorgeous.
Do you see your family? Do you see your future?
Well, when I look as old as this, there can't be a huge amount of future left, I'm thinking.
Photograph. Have you got a favourite photograph?
So there's a couple of photographs. First of all, I just don't like having my photograph taken.
Right.
And I've never collected photographs. Because I knew you were going to ask me what's my favourite photograph. And I said to my wife, I've got this photograph of you that was taken at our wedding. Have we still got it? We got married in East London in a registry office, and then we just went back to a little cafe, and there's like a handful of people. It was a room not much bigger than this, a handful of people, and then somebody just snapped a picture. It was me and my wife, and we're both just laughing, and my wife's beautiful, and it just looks like a Hollywood picture. And there's also another friend of mine who's in there who was also a comedian, but I just love that picture. It's one of my favourite pictures of me and Soph, and it was the last time we laughed as well. So. The other one I was thinking of, which I had a picture as a kid of Tom Baker, Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And he sent me a picture of him, and that was like the only picture I would want to keep forever.
But he signed it, did he sign it?
Yeah. It was just Tom Baker. He didn't say it to Gary. Gary, love your work.
Yeah. How do you deal with what you see on the street? You know, this work you're doing is pretty dark, or do you get affected by that?
Yeah, I mean, I cry.
Yeah.
That's just life, isn't it? That's
yeah.
Just, and I'm very lucky. I don't have any diagnosable mental health conditions to date. But I think comedy is the reason why. I just think
as a therapy.
I think, yeah, for me, you must have chatted a lot to comics, but there's this idea that, comics are all kind of broken souls, they're all deeply sad and whatever. But I mean, when I was a kid, I was really badly bullied. I mean, like traumatically bullied. I mean, as a kid, really badly. My dad was like a local policeman, and we lived it was a police house, so people would knock on the door, and I was the son of a policeman. And also, I was probably I'd have been really annoying. I'd have been a really annoying, odd kid. So I had that, but it hasn't affected me. But I mean, so it had that. But I mean, medicine. I was drawn to quite dark things. So trauma. I did a lot when I was in the army. I did a lot of trauma stuff. Like physical trauma.
Right.
And then when I left the army, and the work in medicine I do now is psychological trauma. Very damaged people. But there is also humour there as well.
Yeah.
And my comedy it's like about death or loss. Yeah. I mean, hopefully people watching on stage going, it's just some bloke talking about his dog or something. It's like mundane human stuff. I really hope the audience don't go away going, oh my God, that was miserable. That was about death.
I don't. When you do your stand-up, I don't see it as dark humour.
No, not at all. But I do a lot of new stuff. When I'm writing stuff, if I can find the kind of the death in it, the loss in it, I go, this would be really funny.
Right.
As an example, one of the first bits I did was about my kids being born. My kids were born, everything went fine, it's all very happy. But I, as the writer, go, I can see the death in that, because if you've ever been at a birth, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's the fear of death. And so that's where the comedy is. It's a man just trying to hold things together. And if it was just mundane, it wouldn't be funny.
I get it. I get it.
But if you want to see the bit, it's you'll probably find it on www.garycoleman.com.
Let me take a selfie. Gary Colman. Gary Colman.
Tug it out.
Thanks very much. Anything coming up that we can push? We got the Comedy Store show in May.
Yes.
We'll push the game therapy. I'll put the link to that. Comedy Store game therapy. But hopefully we've got Jo Brand. I mustn't say that because just in case she doesn't, but she said she'll do it. Jo Brand.
Yeah. Well, if you say it, then she has to.
Oh no.
Oh, I hope Jo Brand turns up there.
If she doesn't, then it's not her. She should say 90%. Thanks so much.
Yes, man. Do that again.